All right. Welcome to the All American Hoops Podcast, episode 17. As per usual, I'm welcomed by my younger brother, Matt.
Chris, always a pleasure having me on. Thank you for having me.
And my older brother, John.
Hey, H, thanks for having us on, man. Excited to talk some hoops.
Wonderful. So, thanks for those that are tuning in right now. As you know, last night was the championship game for the men's college basketball tournaments, and I, for one, am extremely happy that this will be the last time we were talking about college basketball for a pretty long time, up until probably about draft nights, I would say. As I mentioned, college basketball is a wonderful thing, but it's not my strong suit, so we'll get that done with first to bang it out. But as everyone knows, UConn defeated Purdue in the national championship game last night. In what was, I think most people would agree with us when we say this was probably one of the most uneventful college basketball tournaments that we've seen in a while, as far as it goes for March Madness. Maybe part of that has to do with the fact that UConn isn't a very popular team. Maybe it has to do with the fact that there just were a lot of blowouts. But I just felt like I wasn't really entertained at all, not only throughout last night's game, but also throughout the entire tournament. So, Matt, do you have any what else do you want to add on to that?
I wouldn't say that the tournament itself was as bad as you are saying. We had some great moments, like Oakland beating Kentucky in the first round. NC State as an 11 seed went to the Final Four. But I do understand what you're saying. I feel like the last 2 years, UConn has just dog walked everybody and won the final. The best team has won the last 2 years. I have a couple stats here that I wrote down before. UConn has kind of owned college basketball in the last 25 years. They have 6 titles since 1999. Their average margin of victory this year was 23.3 points. Their closest game in the last 2 tournaments happened last Final Four, where they beat Miami by 13 points. Dan Hurley is a gigantic douchebag, but he is a great coach. You can't hate that. Let me rephrase. You can hate him. You can hate that, but you have to respect him. A Loyola Maryland ex-basketball player won a national title, which is pretty cool. And I just want to say a couple other things. St. John's lost this team by 5 in March, 4 in December. Seton Hall beat them by 15. And Seton Hall just won the NIT, and both teams were left out because we had to get 6 Mountain West teams in the tournament, which was awesome. So really shout out to the committee for that. But not a lot of comments. UConn kind of just dog walked everybody, but good for them.
I hope the committee next year kind of overcorrects what they did this year and includes a lot of these Big East teams. I know it's tough to kind of give like a preview of what next year is because of the portal and how every roster is just going to change. I still expect UConn to be probably the number 1 team in the nation regardless. But, in terms of St. John's, they hung 90 on this UConn defense. That was just, if you watch the games, it was unbelievably impressive all year. I don't know why. I watched the Elite Eight, Final Four, and the national championship game. Aside from a couple different plays, they would get opposing teams would get down the lane. I don't know why they're going up with some of these layups because they would just get swatted. The rim protection was outstanding. Perimeter defense was great too. UConn was far and away the best team. And you mentioned teams like St. John's and Seton Hall played them better than any team in this whole tournament did. So hopefully there's a little bit of a correction next year. I'm saying that before the season even starts, but I agree with both of you in a sense that the tournament felt a little different than years past. The last 2 years, we did have some cool upsets, like NC State making it to the Final Four as an 11 seed. I thought they were a very, very good 11 seed, obviously, but they won the ACC. Outside of that, I feel like maybe in years past we've just kind of always thought March Madness as this like insane upsets all the time. But sometimes when you have a team like UConn, I kind of related it to Kentucky with Anthony Davis. Sometimes the best teams just are that. They're the best teams, and there's a reason for that. But, I'm sure we'll all get really excited next year around March. But until then, happy to focus on the NBA from now on.
Oh, yeah. Matt, I forgot. Which of your friends are Seton Hall fans? Do you have any friends that are Seton Hall fans? I forgot. Like any of your closer friends?
Dave Smith, waiver rider
Right,
legend.
yeah.
Is a massive Seton Hall fan. I saw him over Easter break, and he was extremely bitter that they were not in the tournament, but very happy they won.
Yeah. I was gonna say yeah, because we mentioned that St. John's really put up a fight with UConn, and then also that Seton Hall beat them. So yeah, I was gonna say that Dave Smith and Tim Maloney were gonna be very upset if we didn't mention them as well.
I think the Flood brothers are Seton Hall fans too, right?
I think they are. That's right.
Because they're Celtics and Mets fans. We got to stick together with those guys.
Right, of course. Yeah. Yeah, but before we move on to the NBA, first we want to give out a shout out to our mother Nora for winning our tournament brackets. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I did come in second, which never happens. I'm usually towards the bottom because of my predictions. And also shout out to our Uncle Tony for coming in third place. Yeah.
And shout out to me for coming in 11th. That's top 75% right there. I mean,
it is. That's right. They're very true. All right, cool. Yeah. So, So with the end of the March Madness tournaments, comes towards the end of the NBA regular season. So we're down to the wire in the NBA season, and I feel like this year is more like the spots are up for grabs because I saw Keith Smith tweeted yesterday. It was either yesterday or the day before that there's only one spot in the entire NBA brackets that, again, the entire NBA playoffs that is locked in. The Celtics are the first seed. They're the only team that is locked into any seed whatsoever. So we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about the Celtics this episode, which is very shocking. We will start off in the East. So we mentioned that the Celtics are first in the East. They're 15 games ahead of the Bucks, who they're playing tonight. Then I'll run through the standings really quick, just because then we're gonna kind of take a dive into each section as to like which teams are close by which one. So the Bucks are second place. They're one game ahead of the Magic, the third seed, who are, I think, what is that? Are they tied with the Knicks? Yeah, tied with the Knicks. For the third and the fourth seed, who are a game and a half ahead of the Cavs, who are tied with the Pacers for the fifth and the sixth seed, and then the Sixers are a game behind the Pacers, who are half a game ahead of the Heats, and they are 6 games ahead of the Bulls and Hawks. So I think, the Bulls and Hawks are locked into the play-in tournament. So we'll go top to bottom. So 2 through 6 is pretty tight. I don't think it's possible for the Bucks to fall down to 6, but like the standings are super tight. So out of all those teams, I'm wondering, John, which of these teams do you think has the best chance to either climb up to the 2 seed or make like a run in the playoffs?
I mean, honestly, if you asked me before last week, I would say my choice was the Knicks. I think that we all have been like relatively high on the Knicks this season. Jalen Brunson's been playing like a MVP candidate, obviously not MVP, but he's always played like a top 5 to 7 player in terms of that all year. Really deep team. They got shooters. Dante DiVincenzo, I think we mentioned last week. Awesome shooter, great defense. Again, really deep. The loss of Julius Randle, I think, is huge, obviously. But that being said, I think you saw when he struggled in the playoffs last year, the Knicks still managed to, eke out some wins. And they ran into the dark magic of the Heat, as did the Celtics. But I think that the Knicks still can make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. In terms of the Bucks, I think that teams going into the playoffs, this time in the season, you want to see teams that are going to make deep playoff runs be trending upward, and the Bucks are doing the exact opposite of that. I mean, you saw it Celtics in 2022, obviously horrendous start to the year, but they ended the second half of the year on an absolute tear, and that kind of took that momentum through the playoffs. I don't think the Bucks are trending in the right direction. Hard to count out Giannis, but in that sense, I don't think they're trending very well. Magic are fun. I think the Magic, they're a team that got off to a really hot start this year, but still think they might be a little too young in terms of that. But I would still say the Knicks to make a run. I don't want this to get clipped if I'm like wrong, but I don't think that there is a team trending in the right direction now that has enough firepower to kind of make a deep run and knock off the Celtics. But, I have been wrong in the past.
Yeah, John, I totally agree. About the last part you said. It could be biased, but I think the Celtics obviously are the clear team to come out of the East. I don't think there's really a team to beat them in a 7-game series. The gap between the Celtics and the Bucks right now, Chris said, is 15 games. The gap between the Bucks and the Hawks is 11 games. The Hawks are the 10th seed, as Chris said earlier. But I think the second best team in the East is still, even without Julius Randle, is still the New York Knicks. I really like their defensive scheme. Tibbs, is known for getting the best out of players on the defensive side. And like you said, Julius Randle, he's historically one of the worst playoff performers of all time. Last playoffs he was hurt, granted, but he was really, really, really bad. And they still took the Heat to 6. Like you said about the Bucks, I do not think the Bucks are very good. They obviously have Giannis, who you never want to run into Giannis, especially in the playoffs. But I think Damian Lillard is washed. We talked about this a couple times in the podcast. He's inefficient, a shot chucker. He still gets one of the best whistles in the league somehow. But that contract is going to be one of the worst contracts in basketball in the upcoming years. I think he's making like $63 million next year or something like that. Like
horrible defender too.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about the Bucks defense. They are giving up 117 points a game in the for the entire season. At least they blamed Adrian Griffin and fired him to hire Doc Rivers. They have 17 losses now under Doc Rivers. The Celtics have 16 losses on the season. So, I think blaming the head coach as a scapegoat obviously doesn't work that well. Like you said on that Magic, I think the Magic are exciting. They always play the Celtics well. They're a fun team to watch, but I think they are too young. I think you have to have a couple of playoff runs before you get over the hump. I also think the Cavs are pretty good. However, the Cavs last playoffs really had a lot of question marks. I know there's a couple of like Strus on the team now, but I don't think he pushes them over the hump or anything. But they scared me last playoffs. So yeah, I would say the Celtics would come out of the East, but if any team would give them a fight, it would be the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I kind of like slid over the Cavs. I didn't mean to do that. I'm hesitant because, what's the injury status of Donovan Mitchell? And I know he's been sitting out. He's probably, babying it just to be healthy for the playoffs, and I get that. But him, Mobley's injury prone. I just think they're a little too beat up. They're kind of a team that can't survive an injury to one of their like top 3-4 guys. And that could very well happen again.
Yeah, I'm not going to join you guys in crapping on the Bucks until they actually get eliminated because I'm a little too nervous. Because I still do believe in the Bucks. As I've been a Dame hater since day one. Even when he had a very high approval rating in Portland. But that being said, he does have a history of exploding in the playoffs. I'm not saying that's a trend. I'm not saying that's who he is as a whole, because I think that's a little blown out of proportion. But we've seen Damon explode in the playoffs, and that's something that he has potential to do. I'm not sure if he will. But still, I do think that the Bucks are the second best team in the East because of that. I think that obviously I think the Giannis is the best player in the East, and then after that, Bucks have a pretty brutal roster top to bottom. But that being said, I know that Nick Wright said, I think it was yesterday, he thinks that the Bucks are trying to fall down to the 3rd seed in order to duck playing either the Heat or the Sixers. But I don't know about you guys, but that actually sounds kind of familiar. Was it not the Bucks who were trying to duck the Brooklyn Nets in 2022? So if that's what they're doing, then that's I don't know why they didn't learn from last time after losing to the Celtics on the road on Game 7, which granted they also lost Game 6 because of Jason Tatum's masterclass. I know, guys. I promised I wouldn't.
The basketball gods always have a way of punishing teams for doing that.
Yeah,
I think they reward teams that go and win, and they try to get the highest seed regardless. Because guess what? You're either going to have to play that team you're trying to dodge, or you're going to have to play the team that beat the team you're trying to dodge. So I never really understood that.
No, of course not. Yeah, we mentioned a couple of the other teams. The Magic, my Orlando Magic guy, as I always say, outside the Celtics. I always have my list of agendas. I have my Magic, the Clippers, the Wolves, and the Pelicans. I know that's a long list, but what do you? That's why I'm a junkie. So, yeah, I think the Magic ceiling is probably second round exits. As much as I can. The only way that I see them maybe making the conference finals is maybe like another injury through the Knicks. If they line up as like the 2 and the 3 seed, but that's probably not going to happen. Like as much as I love Paolo and Franz, I don't think that's going to happen. The Cavs as well, we mentioned. Donovan Mitchell might be babying his injury, but I also feel like at the same time, I haven't really been monitoring him really. But I do know in the games that he's missed, he missed a good amount of games, came back and played like crap for a couple of games, so they sat him back down. So maybe they're really, really being cautious. But what I do know is that the Cavs are an absolute disaster without him. I think it was Bill Simmons who said that run the Cavs went on in February where they were looking like literally the best team in the league was kind of fake, which I think might age very, very well. As big Donovan Mitchell fan right here, I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. But didn't play well in last year's playoffs. And then in the year before, it was kind of tough when they were when I think it was they lost to in 2022. Maps. To Luka. So yeah, I don't know. And then the last team that nobody mentioned yet because they're not really true contenders either. But the Pacers, they are the sixth. Yeah, as I mentioned, they're tied with the Cavs now for the 5th and the 6th seed. Their team, I think they're second in offense right now behind the Celtics. Tyrese Halliburton had an awesome beginning of the season, but since the in-season tournament, he's kind of fallen off a little bit. But yeah, I don't know, like maybe I trust them, maybe just a little bit more than the Cavs. But Matt, did you have any notes on the Pacers there? I kind of but
the Pacers, they don't play any defense, so they don't really move
right.
me. You said ever since the in-season tournament and ever since Halliburton's hamstring injury, he hasn't been playing well at all. I mean, obviously the game slows down a lot in the playoffs, and usually the better defense wins. So I don't trust the Pacers at all.
Yeah, I think what you see with the Pacers is kind of like almost like an exaggeration of what the Bucks are. At least at the beginning of the year when they were like very high offensive rating team and just like a putrid defensive team. I think sometimes the Pacers make the Bucks look like a good defensive team in a sense. I mean, and I think we all agree that when we go through these teams, we talk about like the problems with the Bucks, the problems with the Cavs. The Knicks have their injury problems. I do think that once we're Celtics fans, we see teams in the playoffs, we'll still be like nervous because you never know what happens. I don't think anybody really predicted. I remember last year we were thinking as Celtics fans, everything goes right. We see the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Nobody was predicting Giannis to get banged up in round 1 and lose to the Heat. So I think that, we can make our predictions and stuff, but there usually is a team that kind of surprises people and goes on a little mini run. So I don't want people to think that we're thinking that Celtics are just going to, go 12-0 in the first 3 rounds. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. But overall, I think looking at it objectively, the Celtics are in a prime spot to win the East.
Yeah, 100% agreed. So cool. Yeah, so those are the teams that are lined up to be in the playoffs now. For 1 through 6. So now we can dive into the play-in tournament. So the Hawks and the Bulls are locked into the play-in tournaments. They are both going to be the 9 and the 10 seed, and then the Cavs and the Pacers do have potential to fall down to the play-in tournaments. But I'm thinking the Sixers and the Heat still stay in. So are there? Yeah, obviously the Sixers and the Heat aren't really traditional 7 and 8 seeds. People are very high in them for obvious reasons. But John, did you have any notes about either of those two teams there?
I mean, I think that the Sixers are a much more scary play-in team than the Heat. I think everyone tends to overrate the Heat based on what's happened in past years. I don't think that Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin are going to shoot 60% from three in a playoff run again. I know Jimmy Butler played well in the playoff run. I mean, he played great in that first round. Maybe he got banged up a little bit in the Knicks series, but I think the reason why they made that run was their role players stepping up. But that being said, I think the Sixers are a top 3, if not top 2 seed in the East with a healthy Joel Embiid. I still think that there's a chance they can knock off a team that they play in the. I don't think they'll knock off the Celtics. But if I'm the Celtics, and you say, who would you be more concerned about, Sixers versus Heat? I say Sixers just based on the fact that the reason why they're in the playoffs is because of the big injury. The Heat are in the play-in right now because of the reason they played this season.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. As a Celtics fan, the Sixers are the last team I want to play in the first round. When Embiid officially got hurt, I think he was missing games here and there, but I think it was it Kuminga that landed on his knee that injured him? That was on January 30th. Going into the game, the Sixers were the 3 seed. They were 29-16. Granted, that's a relatively small sample size, but they they are definitely not a 7 or 8 seed. I agree with what you said about the Heat. Although, they're like the Celtics kryptonite. You never want to play the Heat. I wouldn't mind playing the Heat in the first round this year. I think the whole playoff Jimmy thing is totally blown out of proportion. He's one of my least favorite people on the entire planet. So beating him in the first round would be awesome. But yeah, the Heat and the Sixers are, I feel like, just in a different tier than the 9 and 10 Bulls and Hawks. I know the Hawks beat the Celtics twice recently, but they don't really move me, and neither do the Bulls. But definitely the Sixers are the best playing team, I believe.
And I think just to add on that, I think people it's like a move that went under the radar because I think everyone thought Embiid was out for the year. The addition of Buddy Hield shouldn't really go, not mentioned. Shooting is gigantic in the playoffs. It kind of spreads the floor a little bit, gives Embiid, you saw this first half of the year, really improved his playmaking, and you throw another shooter on the wing there, I think that makes them even a little more tough to beat. So, yeah, that's just what I would throw in there.
Yeah, great points. So, yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure, because Joel Embiid is known to be a bit of a playoff dropper. But that being said, he also this year is a little bit different because he had a couple months off, so it's going to be so he's a little well rested now, and it's not like he's too rusty either. He came back, he's playing very, very well. He's not playing like he was pre-injury, but that's also so you can't really expect him to play that great. So that'll be interesting for sure. Yeah, as far as it goes for the Heat, kind of similar to the Bucks. I'm still cautiously, I'm still pretty cautious to step away from them. I feel like I do that with most teams that I have a good track record. So it's not that I have faith in playoff Jimmy. It's that I have more faith in Eric Spoelstra. So, because obviously, Jimmy can step it up big time. Bam can play great defense on the Jays, and also he can have the role players go off at any point. Martin, Jaime, Haskaz. I'm not saying that will happen, but it's something that can absolutely happen. And then we don't really have to talk about the Hawks or the Bulls that much, but yeah, they don't really move me a ton, despite the 2 losses that the Celtics had to the Hawks. The Hawks are I didn't realize how low they were. I kind of thought there was a dip between the Hawks and the Bulls, but the Bulls are actually a game ahead of the Hawks, and I tweeted this out a couple days ago, but I'm never going to root for any opponents, but I guess you could say the Sixers would be the toughest one, but I honestly might lean Miami there. Again, this is strictly because of track record, which often correlates to the playoffs, but we'll see there. But I don't know if you guys did this, probably not because I didn't tell you to, but I went through each team and who they're playing, and then predicted what I think the standings are going to end up being. Kind of wish I had a graphic here for that. We don't have the technology for that yet, or we do, but I haven't tried it out yet. But so what I think it's going to be, I think the Celtics are going to finish in first, then the Bucks second. No, I was looking at the wrong list. Jeez. So the Celtics first, the Bucks second. I'm going to have the Knicks coming in third, because the Knicks are playing the Bulls, the Celtics, the Nets, and the Bulls again. I think they definitely pick off the Nets, that they're going to pick off at least one of the 2 games against the Bulls. And I think there's a chance that they might pick off the Celtics too, because the Celtics are going to they're going to continue resting their guys, especially because it's one of the last games of the year. So I think they'll finish off the year pretty strong. Then I have the Magic 4th, then the Cavs 5th, the Pacers 6th, which actually, if I'm not mistaken, I actually had the Magic, the Cavs, and the Pacers tied for 4, 5, and 6, but then the Magic go in the tiebreaker there because they won their division. And then 7 and 8, I have in that order, I have the Sixers, the Heat, the Bulls, then the Hawks. So yeah, it would be one hell of a playing tournament, because it would probably be Sixers Heat would be a great game, and then who knows what the Hawks could do. But however, Trae Young is even though we've openly bashed him on the show, he's certainly someone that's known to step it up in big games. And then seeing him go up against either Jimmy Butler or Joel Embiid would be pretty cool, because we've seen him go, like it would be a rematch of the 2021 Eastern Conference semifinals, which and then so that those would be my predictions there. So this would be much cooler if there was something in front of you guys, but so yeah, and then it would be the 3 seed versus 6 seed. It would be the Knicks versus the Pacers, and then the Magic versus the Cavs. So the casual basketball mind might think that's boring, but those are actually pretty interesting matchups, especially for Matthew's roommate Dean, who thinks that Jalen Brunson is 2 tiers ahead of Tyrese Halliburton, and again, he's been taking victory laps all year long, so that'd be a pretty interesting matchup. Those would be pretty interesting matchups to me.
I know you said you don't root for, and I agree, you shouldn't root for teams to win, but would you hypothetically say the Pacers fall to that 7 seed, the Sixers take that 6th spot?
Mm-hmm.
Would you see that as a more beneficial matchup for a play-in team, or just the 1 or the 2 seed?
I think it would benefit the playing team. Yeah, I definitely trust the Heat more than I trust the Pacers, and then I definitely think there's a world where there's a world where again Trae Young can go ballistic in an 8-9 matchup and pick up the Pacers, which that would be that would be like another story as to why the playing tournaments, which people have their opinions on, which objectively it's great for marketing and like teams being competitive, but I also think it's unfortunate for circumstances where the Pacers are currently 8.5 games ahead of the Hawks, and they have potential to get picked off by them in the playing tournaments. So I definitely think they can lose in the playing tournament, but I would probably think the Pacers would be a tougher matchup than the 2 bottom teams, but probably a little bit easier than the Sixers or the Heats, in my opinion, maybe because I just don't trust the Pacers a ton. But that being said, they were a pain in the ass to the Celtics at the beginning of the year as well, so I don't know about that. All right, cool. Yeah, as long as you guys don't have anything else to add, we will go out west, where there's a little more traction at top. Not a little more, a lot more traction up top. Currently, the Nuggets, the Wolves, and the Thunder are fighting for the 1st seed. The Wolves and the Nuggets are tied, in which the Wolves, as of now, own the tiebreaker. However, they are playing each other later in the week, so that can change. Then the Thunder are the 3rd seed. They're 3 games ahead of the Clippers, so they're all but locked into that. They're all but locked in to be a top 3 seed. Clippers are the 4th seed and 2 games ahead of the Mavs, who are 2 games ahead of the 6th seed Suns. 6, 7, 8, oh yeah, and then the Suns are tied for 6th and 7th with the Pelicans. The Kings are the 8th seed and 1 game behind the Suns and the Pelicans, and the Kings are, I think they're a game and a half ahead of the Lakers, but technically more than that because they have them beating the tiebreaker. And then the Lakers are a game and a half ahead of the Warriors, who they are playing tonight as well. But yeah, we'll do the same thing as before. We'll go top to bottom. Wolves, Nuggets, Thunder. I guess I'll just ask you guys. Do you think there is any scenario where you think, regardless of where the seedings match up, is there a scenario where either the Thunder or the Wolves can pick up the Nuggets in a competitive playoff series?
I'll start. I think if anything, the Timberwolves could beat the Nuggets. I don't see it happening, but just their defense, they have bigger guys than the Thunder. But yeah, I don't really trust the Thunder in the playoffs at all. I know you, Chris, you said this. I might steal your take here, but I could see the Thunder potentially losing in the first round if they play the Pelicans. I mean, your Pelicans, they've looked good as of late. But I mean, they're very young. SGA, is a all-star, an MVP candidate. He won't win, but he is an MVP candidate. But his play style, I don't know how it will translate to the playoffs. But I could see them losing in the first round. But yeah, if anyone, I would see, I guess the Timberwolves beating the Nuggets, but I don't see it. I don't see anybody slowing down Jokic enough.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on the Nuggets being the favorite to come out of the West. They just have that experience. It's hard to doubt them after their run last year. They pretty much, they didn't sweep the entire conference, but pretty damn close. They've looked great down the stretch. I would agree that the Timberwolves would be the team I would pick if you had to ask me who do you think could knock off the Nuggets. I think it all depends on Karl Anthony Towns' injury status. He's been banged up. I read something today that he's like eyeing a return soon. So if he's healthy, I think with Gobert and Cat, maybe they could maybe do a little something. I know Jokic like owns Gobert, but I think he pretty much owns everybody in the league at this point. But I think the Timberwolves, it's interesting because I don't think the Nuggets win if Jamal Murray doesn't play like a top 20 player. I think he's really imperative to that team. Jokic can only do so much. And I think the defense of Anthony Edwards could play a factor in that. I think he matches up pretty well with Murray size, speaking with size and defensive ability in general. But that being said, I agree with your take, Matt, on the Thunder. I just think that they're young. We haven't seen them in the playoffs. And we mentioned before, superstars that rely on the free throw line a lot sometimes tend to drop off in the playoffs. Not saying we're rooting for that or that it will happen, but it very well could happen. So, I think Nuggets, but Timberwolves might have an outside shot at it.
Yeah, great points being made there for sure. I do think there's a world where Matt mentioned I do think there's a world where the Thunder lose to the Pelicans in the first round. I'll actually talk about that later when we take a deeper dive into the teams that are a little bit lower. I do agree that the Wolves definitely have a better shot against the Nuggets than the Thunder, even though the Thunder are the significantly better offensive team. Even though the Thunder are like close defensive rating wise to the Wolves, both they're in the top 5. I still think that I think it's the Wolves and the Celtics. Then I think there's a deep drop off after that for every other team. Not again, I don't have the numbers for that, but still, I think scheme wise, and I think that Chris Finch does a great job scheming that out. And yeah, I know that John and our friend Pete, actually both of you aren't big fans of Gobert, and neither is our friend Pete Foreman. But that being said, people like to use the big man stats against other big men. But that being said, one thing that tends to happen is that when defensive anchors big men, so like in Gobert, Wemby, Anthony Davis, so like their main job is to anchor the entire defense and like not stay on their man the entire time. So like they kind of roam around and then and like that's what makes them so great is that you can't take them out of a play. But however, when the other team has an elite big man, that's when they have to stay on that big man, and they're just not doing something that they're used to doing. So that's why. That's why Jokic does so well against Gobert, is because Gobert is doing something that he's not used to doing. Which, granted, some might argue that's kind of a weakness from Gobert, but I can definitely see both sides there.
Chris, I'd like to add a thing about the Timberwolves.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
maybe that Gobert could set some elite screens this series, and that will push them over the edge against the Nuggets because he is in the whatever percentile.
99th. He's the best in the league. He's the best screener in the league. I don't know if I mentioned. Okay, no, I didn't know. I definitely did mention that Karl Anthony Towns is coming back as well. Like they see it potentially before the playoffs. So that's going to be huge for them. Which I know. It's my least favorite thing around NBA discourse is when a team goes on a run, when a player gets injured, and the whole talk is, it's happening now. The Wolves are better without Karl Anthony Towns. No, they're not. They're just playing well without him. They're just doing that. Who did it happen with? It happened with the Celtics and Kyrie. It happened with, it happened with a few others as well. Like it happened with someone in the Lakers. I forgot who. It was a little bit ago, but it's very annoying. But we will take the West is a little more set in stone. So we'll actually take a little bit of a dive into the 4-5 matchup now. I think as of now, it's it's not set in stone, obviously, because like there's some things that could happen, but we're looking at another matchup between the Clippers and the Mavericks. I'll get my take on the Clippers right away. Clippers were my pick to come out of the West before the James Harden trade, and though I started to entertain the idea of jumping off the bandwagon of the Clippers, I'm not doing it. I still think the Clippers have I still believe in the Clippers. I still believe in playoff Kawhi Leonard. I still believe in Ty Lue, despite losing a ton of popularity. I think that they would beat the Mavs in this series, despite Luka and Kyrie going absolutely ballistic lately. I just trust the Clippers a little bit more. I trust, at the end of the day, I trust Kawhi more than I trust Luka, and then I also trust Paul George more than I trust Kyrie. And also, I think that Ty Lue is a much better coach than Jason Kidd. I think Jason Kidd's been much better as a Maverick than the past couple of years. But yeah, definitely believe in the Mavs and the Clippers there. I don't think the Clippers can beat the Nuggets, but I do think that if they match up with either the Thunder or the Wolves, that they can potentially give a run for their money. So I'm definitely not closing the idea of the Clippers making the finals. I kind of gave my take on the Mavs a little bit there, but Matt, do you have any other notes about that matchup?
I think this is going to be probably the best series if the Thunder show up for the playoffs. If they handle their business in round one, I think this will be the best round one matchup. I'm going to take the Mavericks. Maybe Luka will shock the world and come out of the first round for the second time in his career. And but I was looking like both teams. Their defensive rating, they're 17th and 18th in the league, so it doesn't really move me for rounds after that. But just the way the Mavericks have been playing, the way Kyrie, player of the week last week, the way he's been playing, the way Luka's been playing all year, I think they'll beat the Clippers in 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, I agree. This would probably be the best round one matchup. I think we would all expect it to go to 6, if not 7. Both teams, like I mentioned before, trending in the right direction, gaining momentum, both 7-3 in their last 10. The Mavericks have been on fire. I think the Clippers have been playing really well, and it's kind of flown under the radar just because the Mavericks have been so good. It's tough. I think my bias tends me to lean more towards the Clippers. But, aside from – actually, I can't even say that because Kyrie has had a couple series where he drops off. But he looks great. I mean, I think Kyrie's always been a guy who plays well when he's in a good mood or when he's in like a good situation. And he seems really happy right now with the Mavs. I'm happy for him. And I would side more with the Clippers just based on playoff Kawhi, guys who can play both sides of the ball. I think a lot of people think the X factor of the Clippers is James Harden. I think it's Paul George. I think Paul George needs to rise up and be that number 2, and he can't have, 2 stinkers in a series like he has done in the past. I think it's been overblown, his playoff dropping. I think he's still a pretty good playoff performer. But he needs to be steady. He needs to be consistent in the playoffs for them to knock off the Mavs. But I'm really looking forward to this series.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very happy being the only person that's still in on the Clippers. So, but now we'll go a little bit deeper into the lower part of the standings. It's similar to the East there, where a lot of things are still up for grabs. The standings right here. So for the 6 through 10 seed, I mentioned that the Suns are tied with the Pelicans for 6 and 7. Then they're a game ahead of the Kings, who are half a game ahead of the Lakers, who are a game and a half ahead of the Warriors. So, out of these 5 teams, which do you see potentially, I'm going to say, winning a playoff series? Because I said in my last episode with Dells and River from Pick Aside, potential run of the Western Conference Finals. I don't know how many of them can make a run of the Western Conference Finals, but out of the Suns, the Pelicans, the Kings, Lakers, and Warriors, who do you think can rise up and potentially knock off one of the top 3 teams in the West? I guess.
You say John?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I didn't say anyone's name. Go ahead.
My fault. I'm going to say the Pelicans, like I said earlier. They've been playing extremely well. Zion's I know he's stayed relatively healthy this year. His talent level, he could potentially be a top 15 player in the league if he's not already. But Pelicans are a 5th in defensive rating, and I think that's extremely important, especially when the game slows down and defense really matters in the playoffs, a young team like the Thunder could, get a little nervous and choke a little bit. So I think the Pelicans are my pick to win a playoff series. I don't think that the Warriors or the Lakers will win one. I mean, you can't count out Curry or LeBron, but I'm kind of safe on counting out the Warriors this year. And the Kings are just banged up right now. Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter. I think Monk's out for 3 to 4 weeks or something. I don't know the injuries update on him, but I know Huerter's out for the year. So I don't think they'll be an issue. I'll be surprised if they end up winning a play-in game and making the playoffs. But yeah, out of those 4 teams, I would say the Pelicans.
I think with Malik Monk, they said he would return by the Western Conference Finals. So I think it's safe to say he's probably out for the year. I agree with your take on the Pelicans. I think they're kind of built to win a round or two. That being said, I think the second team on my mind would be the Suns. We've talked about the Suns and their depth issues and maybe a little too many cooks in the kitchen with 3 ball-dominant guys in Booker, KD, and Beal. But I think KD and Booker definitely give you that. They definitely have the potential to go on a run in this Western Conference. It's hard to count out guys who have shown to have playoff success. I know Booker has, bad elimination game stats, but aside from that, he's been a really good playoff performer. KD has had a couple bad series over the last couple of years, but it's hard to discount what he's done in his career. And I'll throw a hot take at you. I think that aside from the Kings in that 5 teams that you mentioned, I think the other 4 have the opportunity or they could win a playoff series. I think maybe my bias towards, LeBron, AD, Steph, it's just really hard to discount them and count them out with all the playoff success they've had. And going up against, like you said, a Thunder team with 0 playoff experience, it could show. So that's my hot take. I think that there's a chance that 4 out of those 5 teams could win a potential round 1 matchup. Unless they run into the Nuggets. Then they don't have a chance.
100%. Yeah, that's that's why we're talking about this. It's all going to depend on how they fall. And the best thing about these 5 teams is I'm looking at it now. I'm pretty sure that's let's see, 1, 2, 3. The Kings are playing just 1, 2. Lakers. It looks like from what I see, each team is playing at least 2 games against one of the teams that are listed. The Suns are playing the Clippers twice, the Kings once. Out of the 4 games, the Pelicans are playing the Kings, the Warriors, the Lakers. The Kings are playing the Pelicans and the Suns. The Lakers are playing the Warriors tonight, and then the Pelicans, the last game of the season. The Warriors are playing the Lakers, and the Pelicans in 2 of their 4 games. So I think it's pretty cool that they're not just going to be counting on other teams to beat them out. They're going to have to face a lot of these teams head on in order to get where they need to be. So there's going to be a lot of movement in the standings. I can see for the for the next week or so. It's going to be pretty cool.
It's going to be fun to see all the overreactions for when Team A beats Team B, and then decides. Everyone thinks that decides who's going to win in a playoff series, which is very different. But I'm excited.
Exactly. So I'll do the same thing that I did for the East. So as I mentioned, the Nuggets, the Wolves, and the Thunder are battling it out for the top spot. I do think that the Nuggets beat the Wolves in their head-to-head matchup and then finish with a better record. I have the Nuggets finishing 58-24 and the Wolves finishing 57-25, with the Thunder finishing 56-26. So Nuggets, Wolves, Thunder in that order. And I mentioned that I do have the Clippers and the Mavs at 4 and 5. I have the Clippers 1 game ahead of the Mavs, 53 wins to 52 wins. And then for the 6 through 10, as I mentioned, I do have the Pelicans finishing 49-33 for the 6th seed. And then the 7 and 8 is where I'm going to have a tie. It's going to be between the Lakers and the Suns. I have them both winning 48 games. So, and the Lakers would own that tiebreaker because they actually played each other 5 times this year, including the in-season tournament. So, I think the Lakers beat them the first 3 times, but the Suns beat them the last 2 times. So then I would have who do I have 9th? The Kings 9th at 46-36, and the Warriors 10th at 45-37. So the play-in tournament, as I mentioned, would be the Suns versus the Lakers, and then it would be the Warriors versus the Kings, which would be awesome because we saw that not only is it always cool to see a rematch of the playoff series, but obviously there's the whole Draymond versus Sabonis drama. That's always pretty cool. And then, as Matt mentioned, we would have I mentioned we talked about the Clippers and the Mavs, and then Matt mentioned the Pelicans versus the Thunder. The Pelicans, they were on the rise for a bit. They're 4-6 in the last 10, but I still do believe in them. Especially if Zion gets hot, I really don't think they really have I don't think the Thunder really have an answer for him. As great as Chet's been this year, I definitely think there's a world where Zion just totally overmatches him in the posts. But out of all the teams that I just rallied off, is there any takeaways? Do you think that could be cool there, guys?
I mean, yeah, I think you mentioned that the Pelicans are 4-6 in their last 10. They've run into a couple tough matchups. In Phoenix 2 days ago, they lost to Phoenix twice, which is interesting when you're talking about potential playoff matches or play-in games. Lost to the Magic, lost to the Celtics. They beat the Bucks. I mean, but everyone's been beating the Bucks now. So yeah, they've kind of hit a little bit of a lull. I don't really know the status of BI.
I'm not sure either.
But I think they've been playing pretty well without him, aside from the recent trend they're on. But adding him would obviously be huge for potential playoff matchups.
Yeah, I would agree. I really like the Pelicans. I think it might just be because of AH pushing his Pelicans agenda in multiple group chats all year. But I think like John said, the addition of BI, if he comes back healthy, and if Zion steps up, they could potentially win 1 or 2 rounds. But yeah, like the other teams mentioned, I don't really see anyone winning, beating the Timberwolves or the Nuggets. I know we talked about the Mavs and Clippers series. I just think the Timberwolves and Nuggets are the 2 top teams in the West. Like they are head and shoulders above the other 7 or other 8 teams that we mentioned.
Awesome. Yes. So yeah, all this is going to be settled when we do this again 1 week from now. 1 week from tonight is officially the in-season tournaments. We do have 5 more days of regular season basketball because there's no games on Saturday night for whatever reason. What's that making for actually? Now that I say it out loud. Yeah, it's all gonna be settled. But however, thanks for tuning in to the last episode. Thanks for tuning in to episode 17 of the All American Hoops podcast. I'm planning on doing another live stream on Saturday, in which I'm going to be talking about the NBA awards. I do have most of my awards settled by now, and I am gatekeeping the awards for now because I do want you guys to tune in on Saturday to watch the show. However, I will give you one preview that's Jason Tatum will be in my top 5 for MVP finishers. I know that may come as a shock to you guys. So that is the one thing that I'll let you in on, and then you can tune in on Saturday to see the rest of my takes. So that'll be on Saturday. I haven't decided what time yet. Probably be in the afternoon. Then after that, as I mentioned, we'll talk next week about the in-season tournament games because, as they mentioned, that starts on Tuesday. So again, thanks for tuning in to the pod. Just a couple of plugs from me. As you can see in the bottom there, follow all of us on my social media platform, All American Hooper on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Take a look at my column on primetimesportstalk.com. So like and subscribe to Chilltown Hoops, and you could definitely make a membership there. We're gonna eventually start having guests come on the show, taking callers in. But John, Matt, as always, a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on, and everyone else, have a great night.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, always a pleasure, AH.
Take care.